When Max Verstappen pulled off one of the great qualifying laps on Saturday, we all called it a stroke of genius. However, it can only be a fleeting moment. That pole couldn't have lasted the entire 53-lap race, could it? Particularly with those papaya-colored rocket ships, two snarling McLarens, inked in his mirrors. However, the best driver in his generation is not a fluke. Not even when his car isn't the strongest on the grid and is having trouble. Not even without a teammate in the front to lend him a little extra strength. Anyway, there's no need for that. Especially when you're driving in a different stratosphere than everyone else. This was a masterclass from Max, nervous from the beginning, until the checkered flag, tunnel vision. He was spot on to win the Japanese Grand Prix today, his first victory of 2025, placing him in the driver's standings between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris of McLaren. Additionally, it seemed like a significant day for the season. A warning shot was fired that day. A reminder that McLaren will not have it all to themselves, even with their better car. Especially when Verstappen is the opponent. The winner remarked, "It was a lot of fun out there, and the two McLarens were pushing me very hard. Naturally, managing the tires is difficult, but I'm really content. This weekend got off to a rough start, but we persisted. The automobile was at its peak today after we continued to improve it. We still have tasks to complete. However, it does demonstrate that we can succeed if we truly get everything right." Did he have the finest weekend in a Red Bull overall? Maybe. I'll stick with the afternoon of the previous season when he appeared to transform into an aquatic creature in Brazil, moving up from 17th to the top of the rankings in the pouring rain at Interlagos. However, this was undoubtedly another victory to share with the grandchildren. The chief honcho of Red Bull, Christian Horner, was only able to appreciate his master craftsman's creations. "Max had to be inch perfect because we know the McLarens are really fast," Horner stated. "And he had the speed to cover them and keep them out of his DRS for 53 laps without making a single error. I believe that was one of Max's best weekends ever." Second-place finisher Norris's closest encounter was with Verstappen in the pit lane. For the British, it nearly ended in catastrophe, and he first blamed his competitor. It seemed like a desperate move. The road just ran out of road for Norris. In his own words, "It's racing. It squeezes into one." He was still ahead, and Max was the last to leave me any space, just a good racing-related one. We experimented with a few things. Perhaps we could have experimented with strategy a little more. We'll talk about a few things, but overall, it's positive for our team. I'd give it decent points. Of course, I would have preferred a bit more, but sometimes you have to settle for second place. On that particular day, Norris chose to wait. It seems that during this processional affair, the rest of the field felt the same way. Not a show to reward people back home in Britain who set their alarms for an ugly hour. By instructing Norris to pit at the conclusion of lap 18, McLaren at least tried to spice things up. Red Bull saw that call as a bluff. However, Verstappen pitted for a fresh set of rubbers 3 laps later, twisting first. Norris matched the action, going blow for blow. Verstappen's halt was a quarter of a second late. Only one of them would ever be able to fit through the pit exit. Verstappen barely squeezed the front of Norris' nose as he was released. The McLaren driver bumped up onto the grass as a result of being forced into the agricultural option. "He made me leave," Norris objected. Verstappen defended his actions by saying, "He drove himself into the grass." The Dutchman was perfectly justified in holding his ground. "I believe that the grass on the right side was not cut very neatly." After the race, he said, "I think Lando saw that and made sure that it was nicely cut." Instead, Norris had to perform his overtaking on the track. But as the afternoon wore on, he realized painfully that it's not easy around this circuit. Rather, Piastri became the faster of the two McLarens after Verstappen was told to put his foot down. "On Max's 24th birthday," the Australian said, "I think I have the pace to get Max." However, Piastri would have required Verstappen to make a mistake for that to have any chance of happening. He never seems to be able to. Not since the gods sent Verstappen out on that qualifying lap.